Chapter 15. The following week, at the crime scene, Annika wandered about the room. She hadn't heard any updates from Detective Harrison. She was beginning to feel stuck, and the clues, or lack of clues, and the whole case itself was becoming muddled. So she was back at Patrick's home, back to where it all started. Cameron, her sounding board and forever friend, waited patiently. How could someone look that cute just standing? Okay, she began. Celia said Patrick owned a .45 and kept it in that safe. She pointed across the room. It was wide open when the police arrived. So what does that mean? Cameron asked. The killer knew the combination? Annika twisted her lip and thought. Maybe. Or that Patrick knew the killer. He felt comfortable enough to open the safe while the killer was there. Or he opened it before the killer came in, forgot to close it. Of course, with how greedy Patrick was, that's unlikely. She shrugged. Or what if the killer came in and held a gun on Patrick? Forced him to open the safe to rob him. Then Patrick retaliated with his own gun. Cameron exhaled. This is confusing. Annika laughed. Yeah, it usually is. There's so many possibilities. How do you determine what really happened? By asking questions. Examining the crime scene, looking for what's there and what should be there but isn't. She clicked her tongue. His door has a peephole, so he most likely decided to open the door when the person, aka the killer, knocked. Did anyone else have a key or another way to get in? Annika snapped her fingers. That's true. Mark said he knew where Patrick kept his spare key. The key's still there, but Mark could have returned it to its hiding place. Either way, though, the killer got in without breaking in. There's no way to tell if Patrick let him in or if the killer let himself in. Annika set her phone on the bar and then started going through the drawers. What are you looking for? Nothing in particular. She rummaged through the phone chargers, pens, and business cards, trying to get inside Patrick's head, learn more about him. It might help. Besides, it's kind of fun. Gives me an excuse to be nosy. Cameron shook his head and grinned, then began to do the same, looking through the living room, peeking in other drawers and cabinets. On impulse, he checked under the couch. Hey, what's that? What? She asked. He stuck his arm under the couch, pressing his face against the cushion. Something dark. Is it a bug? She moved closer to him. No. Cameron got to his knees and stood, exhaling in triumph. Got it. Annika peered at the items in his hand. A piece of a pretzel, a water bottle lid, and a black piece of plastic a couple inches long. Junk, he murmured. Should we throw it away? No, I'll take it to Detective Harrison, just in case. She grabbed a sandwich bag from her purse and opened it. This black piece. It looks like the end piece to a pair of glasses. Wouldn't you say? Yeah, I think you're right. Cameron dropped the items inside. What do you think it means? Is it a clue? Hey, you never know. You never know. After a few more minutes of searching, the two exited the house. Annika revealed the key from its hiding place and locked up. So, seems to me that Patrick knew his killer. So we're left with basically Patrick's coworkers, boss, and friends. Brian Blake, John Fuller, Laura Denning, Mark Eaton, and Celia Garner. What are their alibis? Cameron asked, walking beside her to his car. Brian was at the movies with Laura. Fuller was working late. Janitor can vouch for him, but can't verify Fuller was actually there the entire time. Mark was home, then with Patrick, talked to Celia, then found Patrick and reported the crime. Celia was at a nearby hotel and spoke with Mark for a few minutes. Cameron held the passenger door open for her. She slid in. All have pretty weak alibis and pretty strong motives. As Cameron merged onto the highway, Annika smiled at him. Thanks for coming with me. Of course, anytime. She unzipped her purse. I'm going to text Detective Harrison, let him know what we found. Do you mind going to the police station so we can drop it off? I was headed there already. She smiled, continuing to dig through her purse. Where's my phone? Cameron glanced at her. Did it fall on the floor? She leaned forward, running her fingers underneath the seat. She unbuckled her seatbelt and searched all around, then went back to her purse. Cameron let his foot off the gas. Did you leave it at the house? She exhaled and sat back, thinking. I must have. Can I have your phone so I can call myself? Make sure it's not somewhere in the car? Cameron shifted, pulling it out of his pocket and handed it to her. Then he exited the freeway, prepping to make a U-turn. When they didn't hear the ringtone, and she heard her voice saying to leave a message, Annika groaned. Ugh, I must have left it. He glanced at her. Left what? She looked at him. My phone. Cameron's eyebrows twitched. You left your phone? Where? When? Just now at Patrick's. Can you turn around so we can grab it? Realization, remembrance flickered. Oh, yeah. Sorry. He checked his blind spot and then put on his turn signal. Sorry, I'll turn around. It's okay, Cameron. Annika rested reassuring fingers on his, and his shoulders relaxed. Back in the subdivision, Cameron and Annika exited the car and jogged up toward the house. I think I may have left it on the counter, Annika said. Gripping her arm gently, Cameron examined the door. Look at the lock. It's all scratched. Did someone break in? Looks like the door was jimmied. You're right. Annika had seen similar markings on her door last year. She had received an unwelcome visitor and an unwanted message spray-painted on her wall. When Annika reached for her gun, Cameron put a firm hand on her shoulder. Whoa, hold on. Why don't we wait for him to come out? Because whoever's in there may go out a different way. It could be the killer trying to destroy evidence. She chambered around, but kept her gun pointed downward. Are you with me? Cameron locked gazes with her, and then nodded. Annika pushed the door open with one hand and stepped inside. Tiptoeing over the hardwood floor, Annika cleared the house. She hid behind columns and walls, peeked around corners. Cameron was her shadow, his presence comforting and supporting. Seeing her phone on the bar, Annika slipped the device in her back pocket. And then a gunshot shattered the silence. Before Annika could think, Cameron grabbed her arm, pulling her behind the wall. Panting, Annika kept her gun pointed down, but her grip tightened. Someone's hurt, Cameron breathed. I heard a groan. Cautiously, he moved toward the game room, toward the danger. Cameron! She rasped. He glanced back at her, but he wasn't stopping, wasn't slowing. Dread filling her lungs, Annika followed. Together, they peeked inside the room. Not a soul was in sight. She checked behind the door. Nothing. No one. But a fresh spot of blood in the middle of the room told her otherwise. The trail of the crimson liquid led to the closet. Aiming her gun that direction, Annika commanded, Come out of there, now! She held her breath to steady her hands and leaned forward. The door creaked open, and Brian Blake raised bloody hands. Don't shoot! Don't shoot! I'm not armed! I haven't done anything! Please! Brian? Annika lowered her gun slightly. What are you doing here? Trying not to die! Why did you shoot me? I didn't! Well, somebody did! Through the window! Annika jerked to the window. There was a bullet hole in the bottom of the glass. Cameron, get down! She dropped to her stomach. Cameron got low. Brian stayed where he was. What had Annika been thinking? How easily could they have been shot? We gotta get out of this room, she said. Help Brian, Cam. I've got you covered. As Cameron helped Brian hunch over and hobble out, Annika kept her gun trained on the window and walked out of the room backwards. Rushing to the kitchen, Cameron grabbed some towels out of a drawer. Annika, see if you can find a first aid kit. Nodding, she ripped open every drawer and cabinet in the kitchen, scraps of Cameron's and his patient's conversation brushing her ears. Brian groaned. Ow, that hurts! Hold still, you're going to be fine. Finally, Annika spotted a first aid kit on the top shelf. Pulling herself up, she kneeled on the granite countertop, yanked down the kit, and hopped down. She jogged to the men and opened the box for Cameron. Here, she panted. Thanks. He dug inside and pulled out some bandages. It's not life-threatening, but we need to get you to a hospital. Brian moaned. Dialing 911, Annika discreetly checked the front door windows, keeping an eye out for the shooter. She saw nothing. Nothing but manicured lawns and cars in the driveways. But who was the shooter after? Brian? Or anyone who was looking into this case? Annika, get away from the windows, Cameron said. She obeyed. What happened? Cameron asked Brian. Who shot at you? I don't know, he shouted, exasperated. I didn't see anyone. All I felt was pain. He glared at Annika. And then I see her pointing a gun at me. Ignoring him, Annika relayed everything to the dispatcher over the line, trying to keep her voice steady. 10 minutes later, Detective Harrison, a few officers, and EMTs arrived at Patrick's home. While the officers checked outside for any sign of the shooter, Detective Harrison questioned Brian. The medics had finished with his arm, and though they insisted he go to the hospital, he refused. "Mr. Blake, can you tell us what happened this afternoon?" Detective Harrison asked. "I got shot." Brian gestured to Annika with his good hand. "You know she pulled a gun on me earlier, right?" "I'm aware of that," he answered. "I'm also very much aware that you were disturbing a crime scene. It was for a noble reason. I don't know if I could say the same about Miss Trigger Happy over here. Annika Vienta is a PI helping me on this case. You will speak to her with the same amount of respect you will use with me." Annika couldn't help but smile. "Now, what happened?" Harrison asked. "Who shot at you?" "I don't know. I didn't see anyone. I wasn't looking at the window when it happened. All I know is the shot came from outside." "What were you doing here anyway?" he asked. "I was trying to help. See if I could find any clues y'all might have missed." The detective stared at him, not amused. Brian sighed. "All right. I came here to get the money that Patrick had stolen." "From Fuller Advertising?" "Yeah. Mr. Fuller hired an outside auditor to see what had happened to all the missing money. The audit showed the obvious. Patrick was the embezzler." "How was it obvious?" he challenged. "Patrick didn't get along with Fuller. He was always making faces and rolling his eyes when Boss Man wasn't looking. Believe me, if you worked alongside Patrick, you would have known too. So I figured I'd come and see if I could find the money." "How are you going to get into the safe?" Annika asked. "I found a code in Patrick's desk at work. I was hoping it was a combination to his safe." "Was it?" she asked. "No. I tried it, but it didn't work." Detective Harrison eyed him. "How did you know where Patrick's safe was?" "I figured it out. Any smart person knows wall safes are typically behind pictures. Anyway, when the combination didn't work, I searched the rest of the house, looking for any stashes of cash. But when I got to the game room, someone shot me." Brian looked at each face. "Can I go now?" "Not so fast," Harrison said. "There's still something to be said of breaking and entering, disturbing a crime scene, lying to a police officer, and impeding a criminal investigation." Since he was about to lay down the law for Brian, Annika walked over to Cameron. "What do you say?" Cameron asked. She ran a hand through her hair and told him the basics. "Do you believe him?" "I'm not sure." "He's lucky. He could have been killed." She nodded. "We could have been killed. Because of me. I wasn't paying attention. I hadn't even considered a shot coming from the outside. Annika, God protected us." Cameron rested strong hands on her shoulders. "It's okay. We're fine. It's over." "I'd say it's just beginning." Detective Harrison walked up. "Have they found anything?" Annika asked. "Found some footprints in the backyard by the window, but for all we know they could belong to the gardener or Patrick." He sighed heavily. "But we did find a .45 caliber bullet lodged in the wall across from the window. If it matches the bullets that killed Patrick, then that means the killer held on to the murder weapon." Annika folded her arms across her chest. "Why do you think the shooter was here in the first place?" "He may have left something incriminating behind, came back to remove it or destroy it. Then when he saw Brian..." Annika blew out her breath. "Kid, you need to be careful." He then looked at Cameron. "Both of you. Do you know how easily either one of you could have been shot today?" I know. Annika rubbed her arms. "I'm sorry." "We both are," Cameron said. Annika met the detective's no-nonsense gaze. "I promise to be more careful from now on." His lips lifted slightly, and he gripped her shoulder. "You've promised me that before."